All right, I'm not gonna wait for any viewers. Oh, hey, hold on. Let me turn on the chat. All right, there you go. Welcome to me pretending to copy Austin, even though I had the idea first. r/nosleep. Let's go. I've got 3 stories lined up for you guys. I've got my girlfriend started finding little white hairs in her mouth, my first experience staying in a capsule hotel in Tokyo, and the Tooth Fairy. We're going to start with the first one, and I don't really know what to say. I'm just going to get right into it. Okay, so my girlfriend started finding little white hairs in her mouth. She's been dead 3 hours now, sitting with my laptop huddled in the corner of my flat. I still can't believe I'm writing this. It doesn't seem real. None of it seems real. A week ago, we were on holiday together, and now I have to get this down. That's the main thing. I need to get it down, or no one will believe me. Shit, I'm not even sure I believe me. Although I can still see it when I shut my eyes. A part of my brain is already working to convince the rest of me it was just a dream, just some awful, half delirious nightmare brought on by the stress of my girlfriend's illness. It isn't, though. I know it isn't. And if I don't make a record of this now, I think something in my head is going to snap. Poppy started finding the hairs the day after we got back. We had been on holiday to Myanmar, her first big trip together. Poppy and I have been going for about 3 years, and we finally moved in together last summer. We've been planning that trip ever since. Looking back now, it feels like the holiday happened to someone else, to some other couple. We visited the temples of Bagan, saw the sights in Yangon, sunbathed beside in the lake. Even went skinny dipping after a few cocktails when the rest of the hotel was dark and quiet in the early hours. Trekking, too. That was my favorite thing. We went on a handful of group hikes through the villages and the countryside, following a guide through fields of chili and ginger. We we slept under the stars. I guess holidays like that can sometimes cause problems in our relationship after 2 solid, occasionally exhausting weeks together. I imagine cracks starting to show with some couples, but it wasn't like that for me and Poppy. The whole trip brought us closer together. It was the happiest I've been in years. The day after we got back, things changed. That was when Poppy began finding the hairs. They were in her mouth when she woke up. I still remember the first morning she told me. It was the day we were both due back at work. I found her standing in our bathroom sink, frozen in front of the mirror. She was still in her pajamas, and she didn't glance up when I came in. "Aren't you getting dressed?" I asked. "We're going to miss the train if we don't leave in 10, sweetheart." Poppy blinked. Her eyes found mine in the mirror. She had a slight frown on her face, and at first I thought she hadn't heard me. She held out her left hand with the palm facing up. "So weird," she muttered. 3 white hairs lay across it. They were short, maybe an inch long, slightly crinkled. My parents have a white Jack Russell cross, and they reminded me a bit of the hairs she sometimes left on my coat when I went to visit. "What's that, are you malting?" I'd meant it as a joke, but Poppy didn't laugh. Her eyes flicked from mine to the hairs in her hand, then back to mine again. She pulled a face. "This is going to sound super gross, but, well, I don't even know how it happened. I found them in my mouth. I could feel something tickling me when I woke up. So fucking gross. It was like that feeling when you get a hair in a mouthful of food. Where do you think that came from?" I frowned down at the hairs in her hand and shrugged. Glanced at my watch. I don't know. Probably off that light gray jumper of yours or something. Who knows? We better make a move anyway. I Poppy leaned forward and turned on the tap. Held her left hand under the water and watched the hairs wash off her skin and run down the plug hole. Her next words were half mumbled, and I almost missed them beneath the sound of the water. "The jumper's shoved in a cupboard somewhere. I haven't worn it in a year." As I write this now, a big part of me hates myself. I hate myself for not taking it more seriously. The whole thing happened fast once it started, it's true, and I don't even know if I'd have been able to stop it anyway. But I could have tried. I could have rushed her to the doctor early on, if not after that first morning, then at least after she began showing other symptoms. The next day it was stomach aches. Poppy didn't mention hairs to me again, not that morning at least. But When I went to wake her for work, she told me she wasn't going in. She had sharp pains in her belly, she said, and had been getting them all night, barely slept. I kissed her forehead and told her to get plenty of rest. Said it was probably the chicken she'd eaten last night or one of those 24-hour bugs. Told her to get some sleep and it would get better. It didn't get better. When I returned home from work 9 hours later, eyes stinging and tired, Poppy was still in bed. She moaned a half grin when I came into the room, but she didn't open her eyes. I woke the next day to see Poppy sat up in bed beside me. Her dark hair was stuck to her forehead in sweaty clumps. Her eyes were half lidded with sleep. I don't fucking get this. Her voice sounded weak and gravelly. She stared down at her hands, which were cupped in front of her. Her forehead creased in a frown. More of those fucking hairs, the same white ones again. She turned to me as I sat up in bed, and for the first time, I saw something more than confusion on her face, something approaching fear. I started to mumble some sleepy response, but she cut me off. I had them yesterday too, Chris. I remember half waking when your alarm went off and feeling them there. 3 small hairs on my tongue and one between my back teeth. She shouted, "It doesn't fucking make sense." Before I had a chance to say anything, she groaned and screwed her eyes shut. Leaned forward with her arms clutched around her belly. I put my hand on her arm and waited for the pain to pass. After a few seconds had gone by, she straightened again and looked at me. No better? The question seemed stupid, obvious, but it was all I could think to say. Poppy frowned. I felt like I slept a bit better last night, but when I woke up this morning, the pain was back. It comes in waves, but it's still there. Before I left for work, we agreed that she'd book a doctor's appointment. Later, I sat at my desk as the afternoon stretched on and the minutes dragged. I did some Googling symptoms. The NHS website, WebMD, none of it helped. Too many possibilities ranging from mild stomach bugs to things I didn't even want to consider. And when I added in the white hairs, nothing came up at all. The thing at the back of my mind, the thing I didn't want to pay much attention to, even though I knew I couldn't ignore it, was the holiday. Our trip to Myanmar. Because you heard stories, didn't you? Travelers who came back home with weird tropical illnesses, who ignored a tiny bite of a sting only for it to turn into something worse. I'd even had a similar conversation with the guide on one of our treks. Kin, his name had been. We got talking one night over a cigarette, which we passed back and forth outside the home of the villagers who were putting our group up for the night. The conversation had started with his job and moved on to tourism in the area, to some of the stupid things he's seen people do. Some people, they do not have any sense of respect, Kin said. I can still remember the way the tip of his cigarette glowed in the night, the trail of smoke drifting up to his silhouette. They do not want to understand that they are guests in someone else's home, or that the area they are in can be dangerous. They want to pet stray dogs. They want to take photos of snakes. He turned to me and grinned, teeth shining in the dark. I actually had one woman who did that. We saw a viper in the path, very dangerous, and she wanted me to take a picture of her with the snake in it. I laughed quietly. You're serious? Ken nodded. We always get these people. All the time my friends are seeing this. They take stupid risks. Go up to wild animals, swim in lakes they shouldn't swim in, walk in places they shouldn't walk. My mind suddenly flashed back to mine and Poppy's skinny dipping session at the hotel in Inlay, and a pang of guilt went through me. I didn't say anything. All the time, they didn't know the dangers, Ken continued. Hidden dangers. You can get bitten by something, maybe a wild dog. Rabies, poisonous snakes. Wait, shit, that's in fucking... All the time, they don't know the dangers, Ken continued. Hidden dangers. You can get bitten by something, maybe a wild dog, rabies, poisonous snakes, spiders that lay eggs in the cut, parasites in the water. My country, it needs the tourism, but it is, how do you say in England, like a sword with two edges, good and bad. He paused and took another drag on the cigarette before handing it back to me. Some people, they don't respect the land. They don't understand that there are old places here, old things that have been here long before them and should not be disturbed. Poppy was worse when I got home that day. Quite a lot worse. Barely spoke, wouldn't eat the soup I made her. Had this smell in her breath when I bent to kiss her that was sort of spoiled. Like meat that's been left out on the side for too long. The only thing that I got out of her was that she'd booked a doctor's appointment for the following afternoon, and I have to admit that made me feel a bit better at the time. I eventually joined her in bed. A few hours later, she was fast asleep. Something woke me in the night. A noise, sort of a half-heard rustling that blended with the dream I was having. I struggled up from sleep like a swimmer dragging themselves to the surface of the water. The room was dark, and at first I couldn't get my bearings. I could still hear the scrabbling noise I heard in my dream. It took my mind a moment to realize I was awake. Scritch, scratch, a soft rustling. It was close. One of the old houses I lived in as a student once had a rat infestation, and that was the first place my mind went. Little scurrying feet in the walls, maybe, or under the floor? That was wrong, though, and I knew it was wrong. The noise was soft, but it wasn't behind the walls. It was closer than that. I turned onto my back, the bed creaking beneath my body. The noise stopped. I stared into the darkness, ears pricked, but I couldn't hear anything. The room was silent. Then I saw a hint of movement from the corner of my eye. I tilted my face in Poppy's direction, and I felt my breath catch in my throat. Her head was the wrong shape. Staring at her silhouette, that was the first thought to shoot across my mind. She looked wrong. I could only make her outline in the room's thick darkness, but the shape of her head was lumpy, like an extra jut of bone was spreading from the place her mouth should be. I closed my eyes hard, trying to force the sleep out of him, and then two things happened at once. Poppy's dark shape shifted in the bed, and a whining noise, a soft, high-pitched keening, issued from her side of the bed. Then it broke off into a coughing fit as she rolled onto her side. Poppy spluttered, pulling in little hitching half-breaths, and coughed some more. I held my breath. Instantly, I had the horrible idea that she might be choking in her sleep, her throat clogged with a mixture of phlegm and those tiny white hairs she kept pulling from her mouth. After a few more seconds, the cough petered out. I lay frozen in bed, fully awake now, listening, straining my ears for those soft rustling sounds. But the only noise I could hear was Poppy's breathing. That was last night. It feels like it happened 2 years ago, but there it is, less than 24 hours, less than one full day for my life to be ripped apart. I need to write this next bit fast, though I have to get it down. If I think too much about it or hesitate, I know I'll lose my nerve. I I left for work usual this morning. Just that sentence alone makes me feel sick with guilt, but it's true. I didn't ring the hospital or drive Poppy to A&E like I now know I should have done. I got dressed and walked out the door like it was another day. I could tell you it's Poppy's doctor appointment, which I knew was coming up, for the fact she was fast asleep when I kissed her goodbye, but neither of those things made me feel better. I think a big part of me knew something was wrong even then. Seriously wrong, but the rest of me didn't want to admit it. The feeling didn't go away, though. As the hours ticked by at work and I didn't hear anything from Poppy, it grew. I told myself she'd be sleeping, and I told myself she'd be busy at her appointment, but it didn't help. By the time 5 o'clock hit and I finally left the office, I was practically running. I knew something was wrong as soon as I got to our front door. Before then, actually, I could hear Poppy's ragged coughs echoing down the hall as soon as I reached the corridor outside our flat. They were worse than they'd been the night before, those coughs. Much worse. I didn't know if it was the acoustics of the hall distorting them, but to me they sounded barely human. I fumbled my key into the lock and burst through the front door. Staggering along the hall to the source of the sound, the bathroom, Poppy was on her knees in front of the toilet, hand clutching the porcelain. Her hair hung around her face in sweaty black curtains, and she coughed over and over again. Her whole body shook with the force of them. "Sweetheart, I..." She turned to me, half turned towards the sound of my voice, and as soon as I got a glimpse of her face, my words died on my tongue. Poppy's skin was dark red. The tendons on her neck stood out like ropes. Strands of hair stuck to her forehead, framing and half obscuring her bloodshot eyes. I could see the fear in those eyes, something fast approaching terror. Poppy opened her mouth, and I stared on in horror as a runnel of blood spilled from the corner of it. A low moan issued from deep in her throat, a sound filled with pain and panic. I had my hand in my pocket, struggling to free my smartphone when she collapsed. Her hand slipped from the toilet and she crashed sideways onto the tiles. Poppy's whole body jerked and shook. Her face was turned towards me, mouth open, a strangled gurgling issued from it. I was unlocking my phone, fingers slipping across the screen when I saw something in the dark cave of her throat. There was a white shape there. It stood out in the blackness of her mouth, some blockage. My first thought was that it looked like a dull knob of bone, maybe food lodged against her windpipe, then it moved. It wasn't Poppy's shaking that caused it to shift. The thing in her throat moved on its own. I could see it writhing and twisting in there. The phone slipped from my hands. I dropped down onto my knees beside Poppy, already cupping her face in one hand. By this by this point, her skin had changed to an angry shade of purple, and I could no longer hear her breathing. I guess the idea that I had was that I was going to reach down her throat and pull whatever it was out of there, clear her airways, but as I twisted her face toward mine so I could look in her mouth, I saw that I wouldn't need to because the thing was coming out on its own. I will never, ever get the image of what I saw in Poppy's mouth out of my mind. Not ever. I can see it now clearly when I shut my eyes, a nightmare reel of images that are just going to play and play and play like a horror film stuck on loop. Back before we discovered we had a rat infestation at the university, we used to keep our bin bags outside in a pile by the back door. None of us were very good at remembering the day the rubbish was meant to go out, and some of those bags were left to stack up for weeks. I remember one day going outside with a fresh bag to dump that I heard a rustling in the black pile, a soft scrabbling sound. It was. Hold on. Sorry, guys. Uh, Let me fix a few things here. Uh, all right, sorry. Where were we? Damn, I forgot. I remember one day going outside with a fresh bag to dump that I heard rustling in the black pile, a soft scrabbling sound. I thought it was just the wind at first, but when I went to drop the bag in my hands, I saw a hole that had been ripped in one of the older sacks, a jagged mouth in the bin litter. I stared at that hole, the clear head of seeing the plump head of a rat nosing its way out. That was the memory that flew through my mind as I stared into Poppy's mouth, that fat brown rat worming its way out of the bag. Only when I saw in the bathroom when I saw dragging its way from the wet darkness of Poppy's throat was far, far worse. It it was about the same size as a rat, but that's where the similarities ended. Its fur was white for one thing, a dirty off-white with streaks of blood and half-digested food clinging to the bristles. As it propelled itself forward, wriggling in its body over Poppy's tongue, I saw that it didn't have feet. The thing had legs, but they were long and thin, closer to the legs of a spider than a rodent. Lots of legs. They writhed and scrabbled for purchase in Poppy's mouth. All of that was terrible, but it wasn't the worst thing. The worst thing was the creature's face. It was sort of crumpled in, a brown pulp of flesh that looked like a tumor in that sea of white hair, a tumor with three unblinking yellow eyes. I fell backwards, away from Poppy. Something in my mind felt like it was slipping. An all rational thought of clearing Poppy's airwaves or calling an ambulance had temporarily left me. All I could do was sit on the cold tiles, staring. The creature whined. It was high-pitched, mewling sound that made the skin of my neck itch. The thing's nest of black legs began. It scrambled for purchase on Poppy's lower lip, finally dragging its rodent-like body free of her mouth. I used my hands to scrabble backwards as the thing fell to the tiles. Have you ever seen a cockroach move? They don't look like they should be fast, but they are. The white creature crouched in front of Poppy's unmoving form moved like that. One moment it was still, the next it was scuttling towards me, but it hardly the fear at seeing it come at me hardly even had a chance to register before it had scampered straight by, legs clicking against the tiles as it fled the bathroom. I caught a glimpse of it scurrying across our bedroom, scaling the curtains in white-black blur, and then it was gone, through the half-open window and into the night. I don't remember calling the ambulance. I must have done it, though, because at some point I remember a paramedic taking my arm. I was sat with Poppy at the time, talking to her while I stroked her hair. I didn't hear them come in. I think I knew she was already dead by then. She hadn't moved in a long time, and her skin felt cold. I don't remember much of what happened next, but I remember one of the paramedics leading me into our lounge and sitting me on the sofa, talking to me. But I can't remember. I guess I talked back, but I can't remember what I said. The only thing I do remember was insisting that I wasn't going to go back to come with them when they left. I said I'd follow on after, even though I didn't know where they were going. I might have screamed it at him. For a long time after they'd gone, before I started writing all this, I just sat staring into space, thinking about what I should have done and didn't do, thinking about the thing growing in Poppy's stomach, thinking about the conversation I had with Kin. It seems like a lifetime ago when he told me about the old things of this world, things that shouldn't be disturbed. I need to go soon. I need to make calls, tell people about Poppy, follow the paramedics. I'm not sure I can, though. That's the thing. I'm not sure I can leave this flat. A big part of me wants to walk out the door and never come back again, but another part, quite a large part actually, keeps thinking about the darkness outside the window. That same darkness the white thing disappeared into. The white, scuttling creature that even now must be free out there somewhere, maybe lurking in the sewers or squeezed into some dark crack in a wall, waiting. Alright, that was, the first story, named My Girlfriend Started Finding Little White Hairs in Her Mouth. Honestly, Sam, this was published by user Sam Hasten 11 hours ago, and honestly, I just like to thank this because it's a really story about how there are some ancient things in this world that really shouldn't be disturbed, like shouldn't be found, like some secrets are best left as what they are, just secrets. And honestly, I don't know. It's just kind of, I don't really know what the thing they were talking about was supposed to be, but I don't really know. It's just kind of a thing that exists here, and we just kind of got something going. Because the little white hairs, I think it could have been related to a rat, at least a little bit. Because I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if something like that existed in the real world through crossbreeding or science or something like that. Uh, yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to say. Um, well, is there anybody watching? No, nobody's watching. Hmm. All right. Well, I guess let's get on to the next story, which is my first and last experience staying in a capsule hotel in Tokyo. Now, I don't think this story here is going to be so much as like a creature horror, but from the I skimmed over it before I started the stream, and I think it talks about like a storm of some sort, but I didn't read it fully. I just got back from going on my dream vacation to Japan. For the most part, it was awesome and everything went off without a hitch. My flights were on time. Oh, sorry, hold on. Yep. There's something wrong with my nose. Give me a minute. Give me a minute. I just got back from going on my dream vacation to Japan. For the most part, it was awesome, and everything went off without a hitch. My flights were on time. The language barrier wasn't too bad, and it was fairly easy getting around. I got to see most of the stuff on my itinerary. The food was delicious. There was only one sore spot that really stands out, and that's the night I stayed at the capsule hotel. I was supposed to stay there 3 nights, but after the first, shit, I ended up using my emergency funds to pay for a hotel the next 2 nights. I think you'll understand why after you read this. Alright, looks like we're in for a treat, boys. And girls. I don't think girls watch my channel stuff, though. I want to start off by stressing just how damn exhausted I was. This was at the tail end of a 2 week trip where I hadn't taken a single day off, or a single day off, so to speak. We're talking 8 to 10 hours of walking every day, exploring the cities, going to shrines, shopping, and all that other good stuff. I started the day bright and early in Osaka. So, Osaka? Hold up. I'm gonna search up where that is, because I'm a couch potato. Naomi Osaka is a large port city and commercial center on the Japanese island of Honshu. Oh, okay, cool. I'd started the day bright and early in Osaka, soaking up every bit of the city I could, knowing it might be the last time I got to see it. I took an evening train to Tokyo, which took me about 3.5 hours. From there, I headed to Akihabara. I don't really know how to say that. And explored, dragging my luggage behind me. I could have left it in the locker at the train station, but that meant doubling back and grabbing it, and I didn't want to subject my feet to that. I decided on a chill evening. I ended up, yeah, it's chill with an air quote. I ended up being so enthralled that I didn't get the capsule hotel until a bit past midnight, so yeah, I felt like I could have slept through a hurricane. Heh, joke's on you, I did. Just, that could be the story, just, fuckers, I did. I joked through the story. This is ruining the immersion, I'm sorry, everybody. I checked in, got a neat little bracelet with my capsule number, as well as a key to a small locker for my stuff. I somehow managed to wedge my oversized luggage in there and took a shower, and then I headed to my capsule for sweet, sweet sleep. If you've never heard of capsule hotels, just imagine a morgue, except instead of a wall of tiny human freezers, It's full of neat, slightly larger sleeping areas, tall enough to sit up and use a laptop, and long enough to sleep in, but not much else. As I crawled into capsule 616, uh, I noticed a little light indicator come on outside the capsule to indicate it was occupied. Sweet. I pulled the door down, played with every single knob on the wall just because I could, and once I figured out how to turn the lights off, my head hit the pillow and it was off to dreamland. For about 10 minutes. It wasn't long before I started hearing a voice through the walls. I guess they were thinner than they looked, and that my sleep hadn't plugged into deep enough territory for me to stay unconscious despite the mental and physical exhaustion. I tried to fall back to sleep, but the voice kept me up. It was constant, and I mean seriously non-stop. Just non-stop. I didn't think she ever took the time to breathe. Imagine that one Eminem song, the one, right? It's like, huh? You mean Rap God? Hmm. I don't think she ever took. Oh, it was like that, except it went on for easily half an hour, because the sound was muffled and because every syllable melded into the next. I couldn't make out what language she was speaking. I don't think it was Japanese. I don't know. I'm not a linguistic expert, but there weren't a lot of that A sound you hear so often in Japanese, and she was hitting those R's pretty hard. So if I had to guess, I think it might have been German. Whatever language it was freaking me the fuck out. That's when I remembered the buttons on the wall. That's what I pawed around until I turned the lights on and then found the knob for the white noise. Bless you, Japan, for your practical ass technology. My little capsule was soon filled with the sound of rain and thunder, easily overpowering the voice from my neighbor's capsule. I could still hear her, sure, but it was like she was a whisper in a typhoon. I dimmed the lights and closed my eyes. All was right with the world for, you guessed it, about 10 minutes. Intermixed with the synthetic storm was a wailing of a tornado siren. It took me a long time to realize it wasn't meant to be there and it was coming from my neighbor. At this point, it was about 2 in the morning. I was tired, I was cranky, I just wanted a few hours of sleep before another fun-filled day of adventure. I was internally cursing at whatever inconsiderate fucking tourist starts screaming in their goddamn capsule in the middle of the goddamn night, knowing full well everyone could hear her. In my frustration, I made my one big mistake. I slammed my fist into the wall and screamed, "Shut the fuck up!" This was her invitation to start slamming back. Boy, did she take it and run with it. Screaming, she hit the wall so hard. I swear to God, it felt like my entire capsule was shaking. It was like she was full on body slamming it with all her might, all while screaming so loud I could barely hear the storm anymore. I put my hand on the wall and I felt it buckle as she thrashed against it. I backed away into the opposite wall, but I could still feel every slam as though it was coming from the capsule to my left instead of my right. I had enough. I was going to go see if the concierge was still awake and see what they could do about putting me on another floor or kicking this jerk out. Or I opened my capsule door and jumped onto solid ground. The little occupied light at the foot of my capsule turned off after a few seconds. The noise stopped, the banging ceased, and my breath caught in my throat. I looked at the light indicator under my neighbor's capsule. It was turned off. I could feel cold sweat pouring out of my just a broken light, right? And that's what I hoped. I guess I've read one too many horror stories. Hey, look, we're doing now. Hey, horror gang. Because something compelled me to grab her door handle and slowly lift it. Yeah, the neighbor's capsule was empty. I I spent the night on a bench in the locker room. I know I probably should have left entirely, but I was spent. Next morning, stiff and barely rested, I went down to the lobby and tried to explain what happened in my pitiful, broken-ass Japanese. The concierge looked confused, and even after using a translation service, I didn't get anywhere until she saw my bracelet with the room number. There was the slightest micro expression of horror on her face. She pulled my arm towards her gently, took the bracelet off and flipped it around. It was supposed to be in capsule. I was supposed to be in capsule 919, not 616. That look on her face, though, I could still picture it in my mind's eye. I have a feeling it wasn't just a look of, "Oh dear, you were in the wrong capsule." I think she knew damn well what was going on. So yeah, I went to the hotel the next night. Uh, hmm. Yeah, honestly, I've heard of stuff like this a lot and very frequently, but personally, I've never experienced it. So I don't believe in what I think is supposed to be about a ghost or something. Maybe I don't know. But thank you, user Manin underscore Lysette, for this best title 2015 through December 2016. Good job, man. All right, let's move on to our third story, which is the Tooth Fairy. I'm not even sure I have the energy to read this, but I'm gonna try. Oh no, what did I do? Did I hold on? Did I? Oh my dumbass closed the damn thing. Hold on. Where's the damn the Tooth Fairy? There we go. Okay. The Tooth Fairy. Wait, what if I? Okay, good. The Tooth Fairy. When I was little, my parents used to tell me stories about the Tooth Fairy. True to its name, it was supposed to be a childlike ethereal creature, younger with wings like a butterfly and shimmering colors of blue, green, and gold with long hair that glowed like the sun. She would dance around house to house during the night in a silver dress, wearing jewel-encrusted slippers. Little boys and girls that had lost a tooth would place it under their pillow and awake to find a loony in its place. Hold on. Oh yeah. No, they spelled it wrong though. That's what confused me. Looney, I should know this. I'm from Canada. It's formerly the Canadian $1 coin is a gold-colored coin that was introduced in 1987 as the product of the Royal Canadian Mint at its facility in Winnipeg. They they spelled it wrong, so that's what confused me. I was 5 years old at the time, and I just lost my first tooth. My parents encouraged me to place it under my pillow when the time came. Enthusing about the trip we would make it to the corner store for a treat. I was I was skeptical to say the least. I was skeptical for my age, and I told my parents I didn't like the idea of a strange girl coming in my room. This kid's smart. I know this stuff isn't real. I just like making jokes about it. I was 5 years old at the time, and I just lost my first tooth. My parents encouraged me to place it under my pillow when the time came. Enthusing about the trip we would make to the corner store for a treat. Oh wait, I already read this. What am I doing? Can't I stay up and wait for the tooth fairy? I asked as my mom helped me into my pajamas. Fuck, I can't read. I can't read. Uh, I just still can't read though. Hold on. Let me fix my eyes really quick. Cause my eyes are pain in pain. Yes. That is very accurate. I don't even know what the fuck I'm saying. Alright, let's get back to the story. The tooth fairy only comes when you're asleep, dear, she said, ruffling my brown hair and ushering me towards the bed. It was a where did I go? Hold up. No, no, no. My mouse isn't working. It's desyncing. God damn it. It was a plain piece of furniture made of wood. I'm gonna read the thing again. The tooth fairy only comes when you're asleep, dear, she said, ruffling my brown hair and ushering me towards the bed. It was a plain piece of furniture made of wood, set low to the floor, and it creaked as I climbed into it. Dad tried to convince me that I needed a race car bed, but I didn't like cars. Besides, Jesse from school got a race car bed when he was 3. It was a bed meant for babies. How do you know? Sorry, I'm just adjusting myself here. Give me a second. Alright, I'd say we're all good here now. I think. Yep. Alright. I don't think this one is long. No, not really. Alright, let's get started again. Where did I go? What the It was a plain piece of furniture made of wood, set low to the floor, and it creaked as I climbed into it. Dad tried to convince me I needed a race car bed, but I didn't like cars. Besides, Jesse from school got a race car bed when he was 3. It's a bed meant for babies. How do you know what the tooth fairy looks like if you're always asleep? I asked. My mom looked down at me, her hands on her hips, a line formed between her brows for a second before she held out her hand, palm up, for the tooth I clutched in mine. You just know, she said. I grudgingly dropped the tooth into her waiting hand. I watched as she placed it into a little blue satin bag and tucked it under my pillow. I lay back as she pulled the white and blue striped blankets up over my chest. She picked up a small paperback book from the nightstand called Owl at Home and read through the first 2 stories until my eyes began to droop. After that, my room was plunged into darkness, save for the nightlight that resembled the star in that sky. But the light was was of little comfort as its pale glow failed to reach the end of the room where I slept. I tossed about, my hand reaching under my pillow to brush the soft satin bag, feeling the rub of the tooth within. I eventually fell asleep with the bag clutched to my chest, my body curled up as though to protect this thing that used to be a part of me. I'm not sure how much time passed. The night was still. The air in my room was cool, and all I could hear was the steady sound of my own breathing. I shifted and turned. I shifted, turning from one side to the other side. The bed creaked and groaned softly as I did so. The satin bag was. Hold on, I gotta adjust again. I'm really sorry. Alright. I'm not sure how much time passed. The night was still, the air in my room was cool, and all I could hear was the steady sound of my own breathing. I shifted, turning from one side to the other side. The bed creaked and groaned softly as I did so. The satin bag was still in my hand, and I sighed. I opened my eyes, still heavy with sleep, my room slowly coming into focus. I could just make out the edges of the intricate mural on my wall, closest to the nightlight in the door. Dad asked a friend to paint it based on some design he'd come up with. It was supposed to depict the forest the heroic knight had to travel through to reach the path to the dark castle. It stretched toward the corner of the room. Dad said a large dragon lived inside the castle and guarded a pile of treasure and a princess. My eyes followed the path to the castle. You were supposed to be able to see the eyes of the dragon within. The castle was dark, and you could barely make out any of the details the further you traveled from the nightlight. I looked at where I thought the dragon was, and 2 smoldering black orbs looked back at me. I froze. As I squinted, I could see the orbs belonged to someone, or something. The figure stood and revealed a tall and lanky frame swathed in darkness. Its back was slightly hunched, with the right shoulder sitting higher than the left. The exposed right arm was drawn up into its chest, the hand curled down with long, thick, knuckled fingers, tipped with glistening black nails. The arm was covered in black feathers, making it seem like the wing from a raven. The head of the creature was deeply wrinkled and gray, with what looked like a similar short, patchy black feathers poking up and flowing down the back of its neck. It had a long, crooked nose and sagging cheeks, and the skin under its chin was very loose. Its eyes, the black orb, swelled with a darkness that drew you in and threatened to swallow you. The creature. Hold on. Sorry. Where am I going? The creature hissed and made a clicking noise that I could smell and I could smell something like rotting fish and death wafting towards me. As it moved in the corner of the room, darkness pulsed from it. I heard the scrape and scratch of clawed feet on the wooden door. My eyes traveled down its body to feet that looked like that of a large bird, or maybe a dragon. It moved closer, its black eyes narrowed. It knew I was awake. It knew I could see it. The feathers on its head seemed to bristle and vibrate. The hissing noise it made grew in what I assumed was agitation. The pungent smell grew as it bent towards me as I tried to scoot away to make myself smaller. It Its eyes shifted and head twitched from side to side, looking from me to my nightstand to my pillow and even the foot of the bed. It was looking for something. The eyes refocused on me and to the hand I still clutched to my chest. My hand squeezed the blue satin bag hard enough that the tooth inside pinched painfully into my palm. Was this the tooth fairy? My hand shook slowly as I pulled it away from my chest and offered the satin bag to the creature. Its eyes followed the movement and scrutinized the offering, the gnarled right hand slowly reaching out and plucked the bag, the black nails feathering over my skin. I winced at the stinging sensation it left as though I'd been cut. The creature sniffed at the bag, snorting and wheezing, frantically trying to remove the tooth from within. Once free, my tooth seemed to glow between its gray fingers. As it opened its mouth, the rotting fish smell grew until I thought I might be sick. I watched as a blackened, sticky tongue reached out to meet the fingers that descended toward its gaping maw. A second later, I could hear a crunching noise as it chewed. Seeming satisfied with its meal, the creature delved into its shadowy clothes. The left hand that had been hidden at its side stretched out and dropped something onto the bed. I had looked down to see the worn side of a dollar coin. When I looked up, the creature was gone. I never told my parents about the creature that visited me that night or the nights that followed until I was almost 12 years old. I'm much older now, but the image of that creature still haunts me. I tried everything from hiding the next tooth I lost to leaving the lights on at night. Nothing I did stopped the creature from visiting after I lost a baby tooth. Daddy, Daddy! I looked up to see a little girl with honey brown hair and lopsided pigtails bounding down the hallway from the bathroom. I've lost another one, she said, as she held up the little white tooth and beamed up at me to show the gap in her smile. Hey, kiddo, well, you know what you have to do, right? I said. I handed her a red satin bag, and she snatched it from me, dropping her tooth inside and pulling the drawstrings tight. Abigail knows about the tooth fairy, at least the version my parents chose to tell me. With each tooth she loses, I lay awake at night, praying she'll never awaken and learn the truth. Sometimes I think I can still hear the scrape of its feet or the scent of rotting fish. I am ashamed to admit I'm grateful it will never come for me anymore. Yeah, honestly, it's just pretty amazing to me how people can write like this. Because the Tooth Fairy, like, it shows like the actual things. Because like a lot of times um, I'm not stalling for runtime. I promise. The that all the urban legends like Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy and the Easter Bunny all started with dark, like malicious, almost not malicious creatures, but like dark creatures. And every story had darker origins that were like watered down over the years. And I think this is a really good thing that brings us back to what originally was. Well, it's 1 a.m. here, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop the stream. I'll see y'all later.